really nice to see you. And I suppose at the opposite end of the experience spectrum, because I was elected in June 2016 to Mid-Suffolk District Council, and another, in a sense, contrast is that I was lucky enough to join a really experienced group of 5 district councillors, Rachel, Sarah, John, Keith and Andrew. So in a sense, that's a contrasting experience to what you were just hearing. I got involved again in the Green Party, I think, in Mid-Suffolk around 2015, 2016, having been a member a long, long time ago. And I thought, first of all, it was great, because what I was doing was helping John and making cakes and quiches, and that was getting me warmed up nicely. And then I said, OK, well, I'll help out a bit with the coordination role. And next thing that happens is the ward councillor in our ward, a disaffected Conservative, resigned a year after being elected. So suddenly there was a by-election, and John was saying, right, come on, get round and find us a candidate. And I exhausted the list of people who I could try and persuade quite quickly. And John mentioned once or twice, well, why don't you? And my partner was certainly raising his eyes to heaven, and no way, you can't take that on. It would be dreadful. Don't do it. And eventually, I was so frustrated by the notion that, see, I've lived a long time where I live, and I know that we've had quite a long tradition of really good independent representation in our ward. And I was disappointed when it went to the Conservatives, and the notion that they might, having messed about, had someone, fall out with his own party, step down again so quickly, and then just step into a by-election uncontested, really, really frustrated me. So I thought, well, no, we've got to be in there, at least making people think about, going out to vote, or where to put their mark. And what was, I'm totally inexperienced. I hadn't done all the sensible things that James talked about in terms of learning what parish councils do or being involved in campaigns. But I quickly could understand that the Mid-Suffolk group had got a lot of experience in campaigns, and so I was happy to sort of get on board and get active around there with leaflets and all sorts of activities to just try and get out speaking to people. The day came of the election and the count. Afterwards, the next day, very, very close, a recount, and we'd done it by 2 votes. And that was really exciting. And what that's done is made, of course, everybody likes to say that it was their 2 votes that did it. So, but I like the point that if the Conservative had lived in the ward, she and possibly a friend of hers might then have had a vote and might have made all the difference. So there it was. I was elected. I didn't quite know what to expect after that. I was lucky enough to be able to negotiate, because I do work full time with quite a long commute. But I was very lucky to be able to negotiate with my employer some time of support for being in that role. And then, since then, to me, it's just seemed like maybe it's always in constant change. I know local government evolves over the years, but it seemed, massively kind of I don't know about unstable. There seems so much movement at the moment, because immediately after that we had the Brexit vote. Then pretty soon after that, all the topics that have been on the agenda really with our district council have been devolution in the region. A lot of you will have been involved and know, of course, all about that. So huge debates about that in our council. And these aren't necessarily in order. you mentioned the funding, so big debates about, you know, what's you know, actions, what role should local government have in trying to fund itself, and this whole move into investment and borrowing for investment, which when you go out and you talk to people in the community, people are horrified that their local government are acting in this way. They really can't understand it at all. They don't want that their local government going out and borrowing money and investing it in property portfolios. And then other big issues have been that our local council moved to a cabinet model of governance. I was just trying to get my head around, you know, how the system works, and immediately the system was changing again. And now our district council is in discussions to dissolve and reform as a larger district council with the neighbouring council. So it seemed to me, as you know, very much a newcomer, lots of major issues, and for me, what I'm trying to learn about is how one might have any any influence, any impact on what's happening. I was just saying to Keith as I was thinking about what to say, I mean, the thing that I imagined and kind of would look for would be, okay, you're not in the administration, you're not in the majority, but you know, you bring expertise in particular areas, you might find like-minded people to work on issues, you know, from other parties, and then also officers. But so far, I've yet to find how that might happen. Whether that's about my experience, or whether that's about the particular kind of tumult and times we find ourselves in, and in our district council, I think a recent history before I got there of probably, you know, some sort of breakdown of trust really between us as councillors and some of the machinations of the district. But that's probably, you know, my view so far. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Anne.